The woke warriors at Disney are admitting defeat as the Patriot backlash surges against the radical leftist agenda. In this video, we're going to take a look at some of the measures that Florida Republicans are prepared to take in retaliation against Disney's wokeness. We're going to see how Patriot parents are pushing back as well. And stick with me at the very end of this video when I'll reveal why Disney's defeat is nothing less than the beginning of the end for wokeism as a whole. You're not going to want to miss this. Greetings, everyone. I'm coming to you from beautiful and sunny Tucson, Arizona for a couple of days of R&R. I'm enjoying some vacation time with my family away from the cold, incessantly cold Delaware, which I have to say I don't miss. But before we jump into things here, gang, many of you have been kind enough to ask me how I'm ever able to get any sleep between all the research and videos and events and freedom fighting, and I'm glad you asked because I'll let you in a little secret. It's called My Pillow. Every night I sleep with the best pillows and sheets in the market from my good friend Mike Lindell. Now you all know that his company My Pillow has been targeted by cancel culture and was kicked out of the box stores and the shopping channels for standing up for truth, and you can help stand up for truth by supporting Mike. You can support Patriots and get the best sleep of your life, not to mention get the lowest prices in the history of My Pillow with code Turley. So for example, usually the classic My Pillow is $69.98, but now if you use my code Turley, you can get your own classic My Pillow for just $19.98, and that applies to over 200 products in their catalog. So don't wait, click on the link below to support Mike and My Pillow and get the best sleep of your life, just like I do. All right, let's dive right in here. It really does look like the woke warriors at Disney are ready to throw in the towel and admit defeat with regard to their exposed radical LGBT agenda. Let's start with the massive political ramifications of that exposure. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that Republican lawmakers in Florida are threatening to end a special tax district that has allowed Disney to effectively govern their massive property autonomously, regardless of Florida law. You know, I found this out firsthand. We had a Turley Talks company meeting down in Orlando back in, I think it was in April last year, March or April. And we picked Orlando because Florida specifically forbid mask mandates throughout the state. God bless Ron DeSantis. So one night we all went to dinner. If you don't know, we've got over a dozen employees here at Turley Talks, and we all went to dinner at a Disney food court. And the restaurant that we made reservations for refused to seat us because none of us had any masks. And I just remember looking at the seating hostess, God bless her. And I just pointed out, no one else seated in the restaurant had masks on. I mean, the place was full. It was packed. And she looked at me and said, it is Disney policy, which is separate from Florida law, right? Let that hit you. Florida law. It is Disney policy that customers must be masked in order to be seated. And I remember just looking at her and saying, you know that what you just said to me is patently absurd. I've got to be masked to walk 10 feet to my table, but once seated, I don't have to have a mask anywhere near me? I mean, my darling, that what you are requiring me to do is patently absurd. And anyway, they ended up giving us masks. The management was very clearly, they were conservative. They had no kind words for the higher-ups at Disney. But I saw it myself. Disney does get to operate with their own autonomous laws. And Florida Republican lawmakers, along with Governor Ron DeSantis, they are ready to strip them of that privilege. And it's very clear that they have the people behind them. There have been a number of protests outside of Disney World parks, carrying banners and U.S. flags to protest the company's radically woke agenda and its opposition to the parental rights and education law that Governor DeSantis signed. The law, of course, bans teachers from discussing transgenderism with children between kindergarten and third grade. I mean, in fact, Rasmussen's latest poll on this issue found that parents are opposed to Disney's opposition against that law by a factor of 2 to 1. I mean, it's not even close. Anyone defending the notion that teachers should be exposing kindergartners to transgenderism is obviously going to politically lose. I'm sorry. There's no indication whatsoever that our culture is anywhere near supportive of such a concept. It's just not happening. And the protests are beginning to spill over into full full-blown boycotts. Benny Johnson recently tweeted out, "This morning my family canceled Disney Plus, sold Disney stock, agreed to never purchase another Disney product, will not visit Disney parks. We're just one family, but millions of you agree with us. Stop letting woke activists who hate you destroy America fight back." Now, technically, this is what's known as consumer politics in our nation. If you're a regular to this channel, and if not, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. But if you are a regular, then you know this theme of consumer politics comes up constantly on our channel. Consumer politics involves customers intentionally buying from companies that promote and support their political commitments on the one hand, while intentionally refusing to purchase from those companies that actively oppose our politics on the other. And so consumer politics generally involves what are called boycotts and boycotts. Boycotts are the refusal, like Benny Johnson, the refusal to purchase from companies that offend our political values. And boycotts are intentional purchases from companies that support our political values. Now, it's actually a bit difficult to determine how much Disney is suffering here. To my knowledge, there have been no official reports in terms of market value loss or Disney Plus cancellations. But that said, there are clear indications that Disney recognizes they're losing. National Review had a very good article on this entitled "Disney is Throwing in the Towel," which observes how Disney is now acting like that Zoom meeting never happened. It's so hilarious. Dishonest, duplicitous, deceitful, but hilarious as well, and how pathetically it demonstrates that they are recognizing this is a losing issue for them. That Wall Street Journal article in particular, after it summarized the massive backlash against Disney, both at the political level as well as the parental level, with the number of protests that have been going on ever since Chris Rufo of the Manhattan Institute released the contents of that horrid Zoom meeting. They reached out to Disney asking for the response to all this, and here's what the Journal reported, quote, "Disney declined to comment on criticism from lawmakers. Inside the company, some executives have expressed disappointment that Disney has become politicized," said people familiar with their thinking. In other words, as National Review rightly points out, they're throwing in the towel. They're shutting down all comment and hoping that this whole thing blows over. If ever there were a deafening silence, that refusal to comment was it. We've got to ask, why is it that Disney has suddenly grown so deathly silent when it comes to criticizing the Parental Rights Act that they were so steadfastly opposed to? Why aren't they defending themselves against politicians and parents alike who are calling them out as propagandists for a far-left cultural Marxist agenda? Well, I think we all know the answer to that. As we've talked about on this channel a number of times, the culture wars are decisively moving in the conservative patriot direction. I mean, there's a whole host of reasons for that, but mainly, when all said and done, it's demographics, okay? Conservatives are having kids and liberals aren't. Conservatives, particularly culturally conservative religionists, are demographically growing because of a comparatively high fertility rate when compared with secular liberals. And demographers have predicted that that factor alone is enough to tip the culture wars decisively in favor of patriots, which I think we're seeing more and more in states like Florida that are growing deeper red. But we don't even have to look to conservative patriots to know that wokeism is going to fail. And that's because even leftist sympathizers are admitting that wokeism has absolutely no future. Take, for example, Bret Stephens over at the New York Times. Now, you're not going to find a more dedicated neoliberal globalist than Bret Stephens, and even he recognizes that wokeism has no future. And for Stephens, and I think he's absolutely right, wokeism has no future precisely because it does not allow for any dissent, right? We talked about this in one of our recent videos on the legacy media's ridiculous response to Elon Musk. Wokeism entails something known as radical perspectivism, which is simply a fancy schmancy way of saying that wokeism does not allow any legitimate dissent from its political and cultural viewpoints. You're not allowed an alternative point of view from that of the woke left. And as Bret Stephens notes, the moment you've dedicated yourself to canceling any and all dissent, inevitably the canceled side becomes significantly bigger and more vibrant than the woke side. Wokeism inevitably cancels itself. There's really no way around that. And so all of that's to say that Disney should have stayed out of Florida's lawmaking. They certainly should have stayed out of the culture wars, because in the end, they're interfering with Florida's increasingly red politics, which will only end up proving the age-old maxim for Disney: get woke, go broke. Now, before you go, you will definitely want to check out my latest video I did just upload on the latest with Elon Musk's offer to buy out Twitter. All as CNN Plus absolutely implodes. You're not going to want to miss it, so make sure to click on that link, and I'll see you over there. God bless.